human evolution. Let's see, one of the more common questions that I get on this one is asking about the absolute dating. I'm never going to make you do this on a test, but I did think it was worthwhile to understand how it's done. In just my interactions with everyday people, this is one of the ones that people kind of struggle with the most. They don't get how we can figure out how old things are. So I thought it'd be helpful for us to go through that, understand it. Essentially, though, we because we understand what isotopes are, and isotopes are the same type of atom, in this case carbon, but have a differing number of neutrons. And some of those neutrons decay. And what that means is that the neutrons go away. You slowly get converted from being carbon-14 to carbon-12. Well, when rocks form, they're going to have certain percentages of carbon-14 to carbon-12 ratios. And what we can do is, because carbon-14 decays, it goes through radioactive decay, we can measure how long it takes for that decay to take place. And it's interesting that decay happens in very predictable time periods, and it happens in what we call a half-life. So the time it takes for half the carbon-14 that's at the start to convert into carbon-12 is 5,730 years. And that period is the same the next 5,730 years. The half of the half essentially is there after that time period, and so on. So we can measure how much carbon-14 is still present today, and then use our understanding of half-life to extrapolate how old that rock or our fossil is. And so when we do that, let me just pop this up here, okay. So 5,730 is our half-life. We had 80 grams to start in the question, and now we have 5. Well, to go from 80 to 40, that should have taken half. That's one of those time periods. To go to 40 to 20, there's another time period. 20 to 10, there's another time period. 10 to 5, there's 4 time periods, and the time periods are 5,730 each. So if we do 5,730 times 4, that gets us to about 23,000 years old. That's what you should have got for that one. And so that helps us understand how we come up with those ages. And there's different isotopes that allow us to do older things, but that's the general idea. Obviously simplified in a lot of ways, but it lets us understand how old things are. Other things we can look at to identify fossils that might be human, we can look at tools, we can look at evolutionary trees, and we can figure some of these things out. And we can actually even measure the rate of mutation that's common in areas where it's not abnormally high, right? And we can use that to estimate how long ago common ancestors were in existence. And so that's what they've done here to kind of help us see that and see those relationships there. When we're comparing chimpanzees and humans, we can look at some things that are very ape-like and some things that are very human-like. Now, I think I remember mentioning this last week. Chimps have continued to evolve, humans have continued to evolve, right? So there's some features that a common ancestor may have that may be more human-like than what the chimp has if it's evolved those things. But hopefully these pictures were kind of helpful for you to see some of these key differences, right? The muzzle is a big difference between these two. The teeth coming forward, the chin versus no chin. They're going to have a simian shelf on the inside. Brow ridges versus no brow ridges. A nasal bone versus no nasal bone, very flat nose. The position of the foramen magnum, where the nerve cord attaches to the skull and brain. The shape of the teeth, right? Very arch-like shape, very box-like shape. And let's see. It's hard to see really in these pictures, but there's a palate situation too. If you look, you can't really see here. So the bone in the chimp is going to come straight back from the bottom of these teeth right here, or I guess the top of the teeth. In humans, and you can feel this on yourself, right? Your palate arches up above, away from your teeth. So you have a lot more space in your mouth, which allows for greater vocal range. And let's see, mentioned the chin, and then you have the simian shelf, this thickening bone on the inside of lower jaw here. So those are all key features that are very great differences between chimps and humans. Oh, the size of the canine is another one, right? Like those chimps are pretty ferocious looking compared to humans. Well, when we look at this guy, right? No nasal bone, fairly good brow ridges there. Look, no canine teeth though, right? Not much of a chin. So this guy has a lot of chimp-like features, but also some human-like features. It helps us understand that missing link component, right? Brow ridge, no nasal bone. Look at that, muzzle's basically gone. This guy still has quite a bit of a muzzle there. This guy has no muzzle, no nasal bone. The canines are reduced, larger brain case, but not as big as a modern human would be. Look at this guy. Whew, massive brow ridges, very large brain case. A bit of a nasal bone there though, no large canines. So we can see this idea that we don't have a good transition fossil record for humans and chimps is just not true. We definitely do. We have all sorts of hominid species that get progressively more human-like compared to the more ancestral ones like we might see in this one here. So, right, any questions on human evolution? One thing to keep in mind with human evolution, yes, we are evolved species, but evolution, some people will say that justifies some really poor behaviors, right? But we're called to be more than just the natural man. And so using, oh, my evolution, like, you know, like you hear things like monogamy is not natural and things like that. Like it's bogus, right? That's not, just because we have evolved responses doesn't mean that we can't control those responses or navigate them. For most people, it's an evolutionary response to have fear of things like spiders and snakes. But there are clearly people who've overcome that fear or who have been able to get by it and have no problem dealing with those things. So the idea is that if it's what's right and good, we should be doing those things regardless of whether our physical bodies were evolved. So just something to think about there in case you